When the lockdown began, the world went silent. The streets that once echoed with laughter and noise turned into empty stretches of stillness. People stayed inside their homes, afraid of the invisible threat moving through the air. The sound of cars, the chatter of crowds, all gone. For the first time, humanity truly understood what loneliness meant. Ethan sat by the window of his small apartment, staring at the quiet city. He had always been used to noise, but now the silence felt heavier than ever. Yet what made his situation even stranger was his roommate, Kari. She wasn't human. Kari was a Velnar, a tall alien woman with silver skin that shimmered faintly when the light touched it. Her eyes glowed softly like blue fireflies, and her voice carried a melody that never sounded angry, even when she was upset. She had come to Earth a year before the lockdown as part of a cultural exchange between her species and humans. But when the virus spread across the planet, all flights were grounded and the alien embassies sealed their stations. Kari was stranded here, trapped with Ethan in a 2-room apartment. At first, things were calm. Ethan and Kari adjusted to life together. She learned how to cook instant noodles, though she didn't understand why humans liked spicy pain. He introduced her to old movies, and she became obsessed with romantic dramas, especially the ones where the characters hugged in the rain. It was peaceful in its own weird way. But after a few weeks, Ethan began to notice small changes. Kari stopped eating as much. Her eyes glowed brighter at night. Sometimes he caught her staring out the window for hours, as if she was watching something invisible beyond the stars. One morning, he found her sitting on the floor near the window, her body shaking. "Kari, are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside her. She looked at him slowly, her silver pupils trembling. "Something is wrong," she whispered. "Inside me," Ethan frowned. "Is it the food? Are you sick?" Her head moved from side to side. "No, it's deeper. It's instinct," the word made him pause. "Instinct?" Kari took a shaky breath. "My people are wanderers. We travel through galaxies. We do not stay still for long. When we are trapped, our bodies remember what movement feels like. Our energy, our nature, it begins to rise. We call it the surge." Ethan didn't like the sound of that. "And what happens if the surge takes over?" Her eyes glowed brighter. "We lose control. Our instincts awaken. We stop thinking like people and start thinking like the wild ones we once were." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his back. The idea of being locked in a small apartment with an alien fighting her own instincts was terrifying. But when he looked at Kari, he didn't see a monster. He saw fear, real fear. She wasn't dangerous. She was scared of herself. He reached out carefully and placed his hand over hers. Her skin was cool and trembling. "We'll get through this, Kari. You're not alone." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then slowly, she met his gaze. Her voice was quiet but full of emotion. "You would help me even if I become something else?" Ethan nodded. "You're my friend. I won't abandon you." Her lips trembled and a faint silvery tear rolled down her cheek. "Humans, you are such strange creatures. You fight even when you know you might lose." Ethan smiled softly. "That's kind of what makes us human." Outside, the city remained silent. Inside, a human and an alien sat together under the dim light, bound by fear and a fragile promise. But deep inside Kari, something ancient had begun to stir, something powerful, wild, and uncontrollable. And the lockdown was only just beginning. The days began to blend together. Morning and night lost meaning. The only difference was the color of the sky outside the window. Ethan tried to keep a routine, make breakfast, clean, read, talk to Kari, but something was changing in the air. The apartment felt heavier, like it was holding its breath. Kari barely spoke now. She stayed by the window most of the time, her silver skin glowing faintly even in the dark. Sometimes Ethan would wake up in the middle of the night and find her standing perfectly still, eyes open, whispering words in her alien language, soft, musical, but filled with sadness. He tried to pretend everything was fine. He cooked meals for her, put on her favorite Earth shows, even told jokes. But she didn't laugh anymore. One evening, as rain hit the window, Ethan finally asked the question that had been burning in his chest. "Kari, what's happening to you?" She turned slowly toward him. Her eyes were brighter than ever, glowing like small suns. "It's the surge," she said quietly. "It's growing." Ethan sat down across from her. "Can you control it?" She shook her head. "It is not something we control. It is part of who we are. When the surge begins, our body tries to return to its natural rhythm. We must move. We must feel the wind, the stars, the pull of the universe. Her voice trembled as she spoke, like someone describing a hunger they could never satisfy. When we stay still for too long, our energy burns inside us. It tears at the mind. Some lose themselves completely. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Lose themselves? You mean go insane? Kari looked away. Worse. We become what we once were before we learned peace. Hunters. The surge returns us to the wild instincts of our ancestors. If it grows stronger, I may hurt someone. Even you. The words hung in the air like a storm. Ethan could feel the fear in her voice. It wasn't a threat, it was a warning. He stood up slowly and placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we'll stop it, somehow. Kari shook her head again, eyes glimmering with sadness. You cannot stop a storm, Ethan. You can only survive it. Her body trembled as if something inside her was fighting to break free. Ethan stepped back, unsure what to do. He had no medicine, no contact with her people, no plan. Just hope. And that didn't feel like enough. Later that night, when the rain finally stopped, Kari began humming softly. It was a haunting sound, deep and echoing, almost like a song from another world. Ethan sat on the couch, listening. It was beautiful, but filled with pain. He realized then how hard it must have been for her, to be so far from her home, from her people, trapped in a place she didn't belong. He remembered how she had once told him that the stars were like her family, always watching from afar. But now, not even the stars could reach her. Ethan got up and walked to the window. You miss your home, don't you? Kari nodded, her voice breaking. Yes, every cell in my body remembers it. The wind, the light, the feeling of endless space. Here I feel like I'm dying a little more every day. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, but he didn't know if that was true. So he just stood beside her in silence, letting the quiet speak for them both. After a long pause, Kari looked at him again. You humans, how do you live like this? Trapped, waiting, not knowing what comes next? Ethan smiled weakly. We just keep hoping. Even when it hurts, Kari closed her eyes. Then maybe hope is your strength. As the night deepened, Ethan noticed her breathing change. It was slower, heavier, almost like the air itself was pulsing around her. For a moment he thought he saw faint patterns, light lines moving under her skin like rivers of fire. He whispered softly, Kari, but she didn't answer. Her instincts were waking, and Ethan realized something inside her had already begun to slip beyond her control. During lockdown, my alien roommate's instincts awoke. Sci-Fi, HFY tale. Ethan woke up to a strange sound. At first he thought it was the wind, but as his sleepy eyes adjusted to the dim light, he realized the sound was coming from the living room. It was deep and rhythmic, like the growl of a distant storm. He got up quietly and walked to the doorway. Kari was standing there in the middle of the room with her hands trembling, her skin glowing faintly silver blue. Her eyes were open but unfocused, staring at nothing. The glow from her body painted the walls with moving light. Kari, Ethan whispered. She didn't respond. Her breathing was heavy, ragged, almost like an animal's. He could feel the air vibrating around her. The room felt too small, too tight, like the world itself was holding its breath. Kari, talk to me, he said again, his voice shaking. Slowly, her head turned. For a moment, her gaze looked sharp, too sharp. Her pupils were gone. Her eyes were like molten metal. When she spoke, her voice was layered, almost echoing within itself. It's happening. Ethan took a cautious step forward. The surge? She nodded slowly, her body trembling harder now. I can't stop it. My instincts, they're waking. I can feel everything. The air, the walls, you. Her voice broke on the last word, filled with both fear and pain. I don't want to hurt you, Ethan. He swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. Then let me help you. Kari shook her head violently, her silver hair whipping through the air. No, you can't help. Just go, please. Ethan didn't move. I'm not leaving you. The light from her body brightened suddenly, and the air seemed to ripple like heat. Ethan had to cover his eyes. When he looked again, faint lines, almost like glowing veins, spread across her arms. Her whole body was shaking as if something powerful was trying to break out from within. She fell to her knees, gasping. It burns. It's inside me. The call to run, to hunt, to move. Ethan knelt beside her, not caring about the danger. He grabbed her shoulders gently. Kari, listen to me. You're not alone. You're here with me. Focus on my voice, okay? Look at me. Her wild eyes flicked toward him, glowing like stars. Your voice. It feels like gravity, she whispered. It pulls me back. He held her hands tightly. Then hold on to it. Don't let go. For a few moments, the light dimmed. Her breathing steadied. Ethan thought maybe, just maybe, she was winning. But then something deep in her chest pulsed and she screamed. It wasn't a human sound. It was a cry that shook the air, full of pain and ancient fury. The lights flickered. The window cracked. Ethan stumbled back as the temperature dropped sharply, frost crawling up the walls. Kari was no longer kneeling. She stood trembling, her glow now blinding. Her voice came out distorted, like many voices speaking at once. Ethan, leave, please. He took a step forward instead. No, I said I wouldn't. She stared at him, her body shaking between control and chaos. Why do you stay? Aren't you afraid? I am, Ethan admitted softly. But fear doesn't mean I'll run. It means I care. Something in her expression changed then. For a heartbeat, the wildness faded, replaced by something familiar. Sadness. She closed her eyes and whispered, You humans, you never stop fighting. Then she collapsed. Ethan rushed forward and caught her before she hit the floor. Her glow was fading, her breathing shallow. She looked fragile, smaller somehow, as if the power inside her had drained everything else away. He held her close, whispering, It's okay, Kari. I'm here. You're safe. Her eyes fluttered open briefly. The surge is only beginning, she breathed weakly. Next time, I may not come back. Ethan's chest tightened, but he nodded. Then I'll make sure you do. Outside, dawn broke over the silent city. Inside that small apartment, a human and an alien clung to each other. One fighting instincts, the other fighting fear. And somewhere deep inside Kari, the surge pulsed again, waiting. The next few days passed in uneasy silence. Kari barely spoke and Ethan barely slept. Every small sound in the apartment made him tense. He kept watching her, afraid the surge might return at any moment. She looked weaker now, her glow dimming, her body cold to the touch, as if the power inside her was draining her life. Ethan tried everything he could think of. He searched old data files, tried to contact alien medical centers, even messaged the Velnar embassy, but all lines were dead. The world was locked down and nobody could come. Kari stayed by the window, staring at the sky that hid her home. Sometimes she whispered things to herself, in her own language. Ethan didn't understand the words, but the tone broke his heart. It sounded like prayer, or goodbye. One evening, he placed a cup of warm tea beside her. You need to drink something, he said softly. She smiled weakly, her lips trembling. Your care. It reminds me of my sister, she murmured. She used to bring me light water when I was young. Ethan sat down across from her. Tell me about her. Kari's eyes glowed faintly as she looked out the window. She was brave. She once told me that fear is not weakness, it's proof you're still trying to live. I didn't understand it then. But now, she paused, her voice cracking. Now I do. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. She'd be proud of you, Kari. Kari turned to him, her expression soft. You humans always find light even when surrounded by darkness. He smiled sadly. That's how we survive. But before he could say more, Kari suddenly gasped. Her hands clutched her chest as if something inside had snapped. The faint glow in her veins flared bright again. Ethan jumped to his feet. Kari! She stumbled forward, nearly falling. It's back, she whispered through clenched teeth. It's stronger this time. The lights in the room flickered. The air grew heavy, electric. Ethan could feel pressure building around her, like the air itself was alive. Her body shook violently and her voice dropped into a deeper tone. The surge, it's breaking me apart, she cried. Ethan rushed to her, grabbing her arms, but a shock of energy threw him back. He hit the floor, gasping. Kari's eyes glowed like burning metal. Her voice layered and distorted. Ethan, stay away! But he didn't listen. He pushed himself up and crawled toward her. I told you, I'm not leaving you. The glow from her body filled the room, pulsing like a heartbeat. She screamed and the windows shattered, sending glass across the floor. The entire apartment shook. Ethan grabbed a blanket and threw it over her shoulders, trying to anchor her. Kari, focus on me! Look at me! Her head turned sharply, her eyes wild and full of pain. I can't stop it. He reached for her hands again, ignoring the burning energy. Then don't stop it, control it. You said your people travel the stars, right? You're strong, Kari. You're not alone here. Something flickered in her expression, a small spark of recognition. She stared at him, trembling, her voice breaking. You still believe I can fight it? Yes, Ethan shouted. Because that's what humans do. We fight even when it hurts. For a moment, everything froze. The glow around her dimmed slightly. Her breathing slowed. The pressure in the room faded. Ethan took a step closer, still holding her hands. Then she collapsed into his arms, shaking and crying. The light from her skin faded completely, leaving only a faint shimmer. I don't want to lose myself, she whispered weakly. You won't, Ethan said softly, pulling her close. Not while I'm here. Kari's head rested against his shoulder. You humans, you burn so brightly, she murmured. Maybe that's why the universe keeps watching you. Ethan held her until the trembling stopped. He could feel her heartbeat slowing, steadying again. The apartment was quiet now, but he knew this wasn't over. The surge hadn't ended. It was only waiting. And as Kari slept in his arms, Ethan looked out the broken window at the empty city below and whispered to himself, if she's going to fight this, then I will too. He didn't know what would happen next. But one thing was certain. He would not let his friend face her demons alone. Outside, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, shining softly on the two of them, one human, one alien, both fighting to hold on to who they were. The apartment had turned into a small world of its own, broken windows, flickering lights, and the quiet hum of fear that never truly left. After the last surge, Kari's body was weak, almost fragile. Her silver glow was gone and her eyes looked dim, like the light inside her was fading. Ethan stayed beside her day and night. He cooked for her, fixed the windows with tape and boards, and tried to make her rest. But he could see the pain behind her calm face. Every time she closed her eyes, her body twitched. Every few hours, her fingers trembled as if something inside was still fighting to break out. One evening, as the cold wind slipped through the cracks, Ethan sat near her on the couch. You're getting worse, he said softly. We can't keep doing this, Kari smiled weakly. You speak as if there is a choice. There's always a choice, Ethan said firmly. Maybe I can reach someone. There must be a Velnar ship still in orbit. They could help. She shook her head slowly. No ships will come during your lockdown. The virus that harms your kind also harms us. My people are far, and I am already too deep into the surge. Ethan clenched his fists. Then I'll find another way. Kari turned her head toward him, her expression soft but tired. Why do you keep fighting for me? He looked at her for a moment, then said simply, because you would do the same for me. She blinked slowly. You believe that? I don't have to believe it, he said. I just know it. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the faint whistle of the wind and the quiet rhythm of her breathing. Then Kari whispered, when I first came to Earth, I thought humans were reckless. You love too fast, trust too quickly, and rush into danger without thinking. But now I understand why. You live in such a fragile world, and yet you never stop trying to make it beautiful. Ethan smiled faintly. That's how we survive. One day at a time. Her eyes softened, a small glimmer of light returning to them. You have a strong heart, Ethan. But that peace didn't last long. Late that night, Kari awoke suddenly, gasping for air. The light in her veins had returned, brighter than ever. Ethan rushed to her side, panic rising in his chest. Kari, he shouted. She clutched her chest, trembling violently. It's too strong. I can't stop it this time. Ethan grabbed her shoulders. Then don't stop it, fight it. You're not alone. Her eyes flared open, glowing like stars. The entire room shook. The boards on the windows cracked and objects flew from the shelves. Ethan held onto her tighter, refusing to let go even as the pressure in the air made it hard to breathe. I can't control it, she cried. You have to run. Ethan shook his head. No. You listen to me, Kari. You told me your people travel the stars. You told me you adapt, you survive. You can control this. Look at me! Her gaze met his. Wild, burning, desperate. Look at me, he repeated, his voice steady but full of emotion. You're not a monster. You're Kari, my friend. You're stronger than this. For a second, her body froze. Her breathing slowed. The glow dimmed slightly. Ethan kept talking, his voice soft but firm. Remember who you are. Remember your sister. Remember the stars. Tears rolled down her glowing cheeks. It hurts. I know, Ethan said gently. But you're not alone. Kari's body shuddered, and slowly the light began to fade. The shaking stopped. She collapsed into his arms again, her breathing unsteady but alive. He held her close, whispering, "It's okay. You did it. You're still here." Kari's voice was weak but calm. "Ethan, if I lose control again, promise me you'll end it." Ethan froze. "Don't say that. Promise me," she repeated, her voice trembling. He shook his head, tears filling his eyes. "I can't because I won't need to. You'll win this, Kari, you will." She stared at him for a moment, then closed her eyes, a small smile forming on her lips. "You humans. So stubborn." As she drifted into sleep, Ethan sat beside her, watching the faint glow under her skin fade again. The night stretched long and cold, but he didn't close his eyes. He knew the next surge would come soon, and when it did, it might be the last one. The days that followed were quiet but heavy. It was the kind of silence that carried warning. Too calm, too still, like the world was waiting for something terrible to happen. Kari slept most of the time, weak and pale. The glow under her skin had faded to a faint shimmer, like starlight barely alive. Ethan stayed beside her, never leaving the room for long. He could feel the fear sitting in his chest, growing heavier each day. Every time Kari stirred, he thought it might begin again, the surge. And deep down, he knew the next one would be different, stronger, final. That evening, the sky outside turned orange as the sun sank behind the clouds. Ethan sat by Kari's side, reading softly from one of her favorite books, an old human story about explorers crossing oceans. She liked the idea of journeys, of people moving forward despite fear. When he looked up, Kari's eyes were open. She was watching him, a tired smile on her lips. "You read like a dreamer," she whispered. Ethan smiled back. "Maybe that's because I still believe in miracles." She laughed weakly. "Then I hope your miracle finds me soon." For a few minutes, they just sat there in peace. But then Kari's breathing changed, shallow, uneven. The faint shimmer under her skin brightened, pulsing faster with each heartbeat. Ethan's stomach turned cold. "Kari?" he whispered. Her eyes snapped open, glowing bright silver. "It's time," she said softly, trembling. "The surge, it's calling." Ethan grabbed her hand. "You can fight it. You've done it before." She shook her head slowly. "No, this one is different. It's not trying to destroy me, it's trying to take me home." The air around them began to hum. The temperature dropped and a faint wind swirled through the sealed apartment, carrying a strange, soft light. The walls vibrated and a deep, low sound filled the air, like the heartbeat of a distant star. Kari's body lifted slightly from the couch, her silver hair floating around her like a halo. Her voice came out layered and deep. "Ethan, I can feel everything. The stars, the movement of the universe. It's beautiful, but it's too much." Ethan stood, heart pounding. "Kari, stay with me." "Don't let it take you." Tears glowed on her cheeks. "I can't hold it back. My body isn't made to be still this long. The surge, it's my people's way of returning to the stars when we are trapped." Her glow grew brighter, almost blinding. Ethan stepped closer, shielding his eyes but refusing to move away. "Then I'll hold you until you go. You won't face it alone." Kari reached out, her hand trembling as it touched his cheek. "You're the strangest human I've ever met." Ethan smiled through the tears in his eyes. "And you're the bravest alien I've ever known." Her light flickered and she gasped in pain. "Ethan, promise me you'll remember me as I was, not this." "I'll remember everything," he whispered. "Every word, every laugh, every moment." Her eyes softened. "Then maybe that's enough." The glow around her flared suddenly, filling the entire room with silver light. The pressure in the air grew so strong it knocked over furniture. Ethan fell to his knees but still reached for her, shouting her name. "Kari?" Her voice echoed, soft but clear. "You taught me what it means to fight, to care, to hope." "Thank you, Ethan." Then the light burst outward in a wave of brilliance. For a moment the world seemed to stop. When the glow faded, Kari was lying still in his arms. Her skin no longer shimmered. Her breathing was faint but still there. Ethan held her tightly, whispering her name again and again. "You're here. You're still here." Her eyelids fluttered open weakly. "I stopped it. For now." He smiled, tears streaming down his face. "You did more than stop it. You won." Kari's lips curved into a soft smile. "No, we won." Outside, the rain began to fall, washing the world clean. Inside, under the dim glow of city lights, a human and an alien sat in silence, exhausted, broken but alive. The final surge had passed, but its mark would stay with them forever. Morning came slowly. The first light crept through the broken blinds, painting the room in soft gold. The city was quiet again. No humming energy, no trembling walls, only the sound of gentle rain outside. Ethan sat beside Kari, who was still asleep. Her skin no longer glowed, but there was something peaceful about her now. The storm inside her had passed. She looked human, almost fragile, with her silver hair spread like threads of moonlight across the pillow. He reached out and brushed a strand away from her face. She didn't stir, but her chest rose and fell softly. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to feel relief. They had survived. When Kari finally woke, the first thing she saw was Ethan, sitting there with tired eyes and a small smile. "You look awful," she whispered weakly. He laughed, voice rough. "You should see yourself." Her lips curved slightly. "I bet I look worse." "No," Ethan said softly. "You look alive. That's all that matters." Kari turned her gaze to the window. The rain had stopped, and sunlight was starting to break through. "It's strange," she murmured. "I can't feel the stars anymore. It's like the connection is gone." Ethan hesitated, then asked, "Is that bad?" She thought for a long moment. "Maybe not. For the first time I feel free. Not pulled, not controlled, just here." She placed a hand on her chest. "And I can still feel something warm. I think it's your world." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe it's just your heart catching up to ours." Kari laughed softly, but her eyes glistened. "Humans, you make everything sound like poetry." The days that followed were calm. The lockdown slowly lifted, and the world outside began to breathe again. But inside that small apartment, something had changed forever. Kari was different now. Quieter, gentler, more grounded. Her strength was no longer in the glow beneath her skin, but in her calm determination to live like a human, to learn, to belong. Ethan watched her adapt with a quiet pride. She burned toast, spilled tea, and asked too many questions about Earth's strange habits. But every mistake made her laugh, and that laughter filled the home with warmth. Sometimes she would sit by the window at night, staring up at the stars. Ethan would join her, sitting in silence. One night she asked, "Do you think they're watching me? My people?" He looked at her glowing reflection in the glass and said, "If they are, they're probably proud." Kari smiled faintly. Or confused. "I'm supposed to be gone by now." Ethan leaned back and said, "Then maybe you're proof that destiny can be rewritten." She turned to him with soft eyes. "Do you believe that?" He nodded. "I do, because you're still here." There was a long silence between them, comfortable and full of unspoken words. Then Kari whispered, "Ethan, when I was losing control, I heard your voice. It was the only thing that pulled me back." He swallowed hard. "You pulled yourself back." She shook her head. "No, you reminded me what I was fighting for." Ethan smiled sadly. "That's what humans do. We hold on to each other." Kari reached out and took his hand. Her touch was warm, steady. "Then maybe I'm a little human too now." He looked at her and whispered, "Maybe you always were." The two of them sat there, watching the stars fade as dawn rose again. The city began to wake with distant sounds, cars, voices, life returning. Kari leaned her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes. "Your world is loud," she murmured. "But it's beautiful," Ethan smiled. "It is when you're in it." Outside, the light grew stronger, golden and bright. The world had changed, just as they had for Ethan. The lockdown would always be remembered as the time the universe came home. For Kari, it was the moment she discovered what it truly meant to be alive. And as the sun rose over the quiet city, one thing became certain. Sometimes humanity isn't about where you come from, but who you choose to stand beside.